Hey there, this is Tim, also known as Long Naps, and welcome to a little draft of Spectrum. I wanted to do some test drafts here on CubeCobra to kind of give an idea of what I usually look for in a draft. Obviously, drafting with bots online is different than drafting in real life. A lot of these bots like to pass bombs. Usually your deck ends up being a little bit more powerful here online than you would have in real life. Let's just start the 8-player draft and take a look at our pack 1, pick 1. What stands out to me first is ATOC, obviously. ATOC can represent a lot of toughness and power and kind of can overwhelm your opponent, but you would have to go very big into artifacts and into the sacrifice theme. You could also just play artifacts to improvise cards or have Affinity or even Metalcraft. I think Rusted Relic is the most powerful pick here for the kind of artifact hoarding archetype where you don't want to necessarily sacrifice them, but you just want to have a lot of them. As a 4-mana 5/5, this is pretty powerful for Pauper. If we go outside of artifacts, I see Reckless Worm for the Madness archetype. Reckless Worm is good. There's also the green one, Arrogant Worm. So it's not like you only have this as a powerful top end for your Madness deck. I find it to be kind of hard to play for 3 mana, as you would, to play it early, you would need a free sacrifice outlet, and you don't always have that. A little bit easier is Skofa's Reaver for 2 mana. It doesn't have trample, it can't block very well, but it's similar in power to Reckless Worm. Besides that, I think Lotus Eye Mystics is a good start to an enchantment deck. It's usually a 4/3. You can attack for 4. Always get back a card. When you play it, it costs 4 mana, which seems expensive, but it's a good point in your curve where you probably already have one enchantment in your graveyard. You already played a threat, you already enchanted it, you already probably got one removed. So this can just get a card back. Besides that, Moldavarn Clone is a good enchantment. This would be a very flexible pick. It wouldn't really be something I would pick to go hard into enchantments, but this can also go into the graveyard decks. So where you would be milling. Loathsome Chimera similarly is good for the enchantment deck as it's in a repeatable threat. You can play from the graveyard, but it can also just go into any graveyard deck. So I think for me in this pack, I'm looking at ATOC, the Reaver, the Relic, or the Worm. Not sure. I'm not a huge fan of the Mystics as a pack 1, pick 1 for enchantments. I think for the moment, I just like going for ATOC and maybe see if we can go for the sacrifice theme. That's great. If not, ATOC is also good in an Affinity deck. You just hoard all the artifacts, you play your big Affinity cards, and then ATOC can just clean up all the artifacts you don't need anymore. So I think that's a good pick 1. Pick 2, my eye directly goes to Renegade Freighter. It's a very powerful common, don't get me wrong. But in this format, you can quickly have a 4 power, 4 toughness creature on turn 3 or 4. It's not unusual. This trades very often. For the artifact theme, this is good, obviously, but ATOC can't crew it without sacrificing a creature. It's an aggressive card, yeah, but it's also kind of expensive. Let's see what else we have here. Dun Operative is a 3-power, 2-mana 3-power creature in artifact decks. It's kind of unspecific because you only need 1 artifact. So most decks can take advantage of it. Vault Scourge is also a bit ambiguous, where it's not necessarily a great card for Affinity or for ATOC. This can also go in equipment or aura shells. Sculptor is great for Affinity. Obviously, it's an artifact. It makes your artifacts cheaper. It does triple work for all your Affinity cards. Maybe I just pick that for the moment. I'm not huge into going blue-red for the sacrifice theme. Black is more interested in sacrificing. Thraxodemon, for example, is kind of slow, but it can certainly do some work late in the game. 2-mana 2/2 is also not terrible on your second turn, but I think Sculptor and Freighter are just more powerful on their own, that I just want to pick something powerful for the moment. Maybe let's just go for the Sculptor and see if we want to go full sacrifice or more Affinity. Right now we have the Sun Chaser in white. That's obviously great if you want to go Metalcraft, Affinity, some direction like that. What else do we have? We have a bunch of artifacts. The bulwark is good. 43 on defense if we're blue. It can surveil to kind of control the top of our deck late in the game. We have some removal, which can trigger some EDB effects with flash. Supply drop is kind of a expensive combat trick, but it's colorless. These don't really excite me too much, to be honest. Serrated arrows is more interesting. It's expensive, it's kind of slow, but it can affect the board permanently, and if you have some way of getting it back, that's perfect. Also, you can place all the counters and then still sacrifice it to ATOC or a different effect. So I think to kind of stay a little bit more in the two colors that we have, I don't like picking the Sun Chaser right now. It doesn't really go too well with ATOC. It does go well with his Sculptor, but I like the Serrated Arrows as kind of more of a mid-range artifact deck. Pick 4. Sojourner's Companion is obviously powerful. A 4/4 which we can play for very little mana. The Walrus is kind of, it's not terrible. Scry 2 usually helps with being an artifact creature and ramping. Besides that, we have the Border Post, which I treat like lands. You play it, you pick up a land, you tap the land for 1 mana, then you pick it back up. It needs to be a basic land, but you mostly have basic lands. So this can be fixing, it's an artifact, you can cast it for 3 if you need ramp on the next turn. Playing this on turn 3 usually means you can safely play Sojourner's Companion on turn 4. But I think for the moment we don't have too many threats, and I'm really into these affinity cards. I think they're very good at creating a fast board presence. So we're not really in white for the Inspector and the Bridge. We don't have any black cards either at the moment. Black is interested in sacrificing artifacts, but we haven't seen anything of that kind yet. We see Fairy Mechanist, which is good if we do have a lot of artifacts. If we have a lot of non-artifact cards that benefit from us having Metalcraft or whatever, this card isn't that great, but at the moment, besides ATOC, our deck is all artifacts. It's also another 4-drop, which, you know, I kind of count these as a 4-drop. Usually have 3 to 5 artifacts at the time where you want to play it. We have the artifact land, but it's this Citadel, so it's colorless. I'm not really too interested in that. I would prefer the Mistvein Border Post to maybe splash black. But I do think that the Mechanist is good enough to take here. Maybe the Star for ATOC. The Star is free with the Sculptor. Yeah, maybe actually it's the Star. Let's try the Star. Here we see Mirror Retriever, which is interesting, and we really want that with our ATOC. If we can't reliably sacrifice it, it kind of goes down in value. It's just a 1/1. It tends to sit around. Maybe you attack for 1, but your opponent just can just decide to not block it. Obviously, it's good for keeping your opponent back if they don't want you to get back like an Affinity card in your graveyard. We also have the Warplow, which is kind of a black card because 6 mana is a lot. We have the Sword Fund for fixing Plains, Island, Swamp. It doesn't really help with the red we kind of do want to play at the moment. We haven't seen a lot of red artifact cards come around, but I think our first pack had the Sweatworks Brawler in it, so maybe we get that back, and then we really want to be red. Still might be a fine point to take some fixing. I think for the moment I'll take the Retriever and kind of stay open. Okay, this is what I talked about earlier, where the bots really do not like to take these bombs. I don't know why. Custody Squire also like a very powerful card. For some reason they don't like taking those. They don't like these high CMC cards. Yeah, I think the Myr Enforcer is a very powerful pick. Spike Pick Trap is meh, removal. Maybe makes a treasure or 2. Pentad Prism is also meh, removal. It's more interesting when you have an ATOC, you know, play this on turn 2, play out a 5 mana card on turn 3, and then later sacrifice this to your ATOC. Sage of Latnam also great, just draws cards. It's like, I mean, you don't really want to draw both of them in the same game. If we would have taken the 4 mana flyer in the last pack, I think I would have taken the Sage of Latnam at this point. But But at the moment, I think we could be a very sick Affinity deck where we just put a lot of power and toughness on the board between ATOC and these two Affinity cards. So let's just try that for the moment. Here, nothing very obvious. Wedding Invitation is fine. Makes a creature unblockable, replaces itself. The Water Edge is not what we're looking at, although we do have a blue card. Similarly, the Spontaneous Mutation, the Metamorphosis is kind of alright. It can turn a Chromatic Star into a blocker. It draws a card, so it's kind of free in that sense, where, you know, it gives you a blocker, maybe you trade, it can be removal in that sense. But I think I like the most the Relic Runner, because we do have a lot of artifact creatures and just artifacts in general, where most of our spells at the moment do trigger it, and we would have 2 power attacking every turn. It's great to get this done on turn 2 and just play 1 artifact every turn if we can. So let's try and take that. So we're back at the wheel. I think this was the Sweatworks Brawler pack, so that didn't come back. We did get back the Worm and the Mystic. Maybe I take the Blade here because I don't know if we're gonna go black. Still, there are a lot of good black cards for our artifact deck out there. We haven't seen any so far. Maybe the Carnarium is better. The Ancestral Blade is a very fair card, and I think our deck at the moment is not really too interested in fair. We just want to, you know, unblockable damage, cheap 4/4s, ATOC. We want to do some more broken stuff. Maybe we take the Fixing. All right, here we have the Freighter. The map is also good, but it doesn't really synergize with ATOC or anything else here in our deck. As we, you know, later, yeah, you could sacrifice it to the ATOC instead of grabbing the land later on, but yeah, it's just not too great. I think we'll just take the Freighter. It's a very solid threat. I'd say this is also a fair threat. You know, you can't play this too early. It's just, you know, on turn 4 you attack for 5 trample. That's okay. The Sun Chaser came back. Maybe that is a sign that white is a little bit open. In this draft, let's just take that. Ether Sworn Shield Mage, also good. Cliffhaven Kite Sail, you know, how much would we benefit from flying? The Runner and the Sun Chaser don't benefit from it, but I guess Freighter and the two Affinity cards and even ATOC are pretty good with that. The Shield Mage is good for saving like our 3 big artifact creatures, but it kind of commits us to white. Not sure I want to do that. I think I'll just take the Kite Sail for the moment. Oh wow, the Mechanist did wheel. This is kind of more of a card advantage card, but it would be interesting. So we did take 2 non-artifact cards this pack, and we're not really sure if we want to go red or we want to go white. I don't think we're going to play all 3 of these colors at this point. We don't have any fixing besides the star. This is kind of a tough one. All of these are interesting. They're not great. I don't think the Citadel, if we want to go 2 or 3 colors, the Citadel is not a consideration. Going into black, we would have a good setup for Grixis. And Grixis is kind of more interested in this grindy, sacrifice artifacts, get them back kind of game plan. And so far, we're a bit more aggressive. I think I'll just take the creature for the moment. Here we're not too interested. Resculpt, I mean, make a Kite Sail into a flashy 4/4. That's not too bad. I'm not sure if we're gonna play it. Let's look at our pack 2. Wow, this is a lot less interesting for what we're trying to do here. Excavation Explosion is kind of an artifact that deals 3 damage. Simian Sling is not what we're interested in. We're not the equipment deck. We're not really black. If we were, you know, our last pick, Ghastly Demise, would be okay. The Angler would be good, but we don't really get too many cards into the graveyard. Only our ATOC is really interested in dumping artifacts there, and usually we would want to be able to get them back and not delve them away for the Angler. So yeah, this pack is a lot less interesting for us. We have the counter spell, but I don't think that's really our game plan. We're more proactive than reactive. I think I'm happy just taking the Explosion and moving on. What do we have here? Witching Well, good for Affinity. Later can draw us cards. Here's finally one of the black artifact cards, Paladin. Its stats are really not great because you do want to have it sitting around. can't really block anything because you want to get the cast trigger. You want to have your opponent lose 2 life with every artifact. You know, play this on turn 4, turn 5. You have so much affinity. You dump both of these. Your opponent immediately loses 4 life, and you have 12 power on the board. Interesting also is the Arcbound Tracker. Modular obviously is great with artifact creatures, which we do have. Whenever it would get killed and we have the freighter out, and we could quickly crew it and then dump the counters on the freighter. That does work. Besides that, not really anything for our archetype. Lightning Axe is kind of regular removal. We did just pick 3 damage removal up. I don't think we need the axe that desperately. I'm interested in the Whale, Paladin, or Tracker, and so far I think our aggressive creature plan looks promising, and for that I will take the Arcbound Tracker. That really makes us want to be in red, and I think we also want to be in blue, and we'll see about the whites. Maybe if we play a 3rd color that could also be black. Here we have the kind of the value card here. It's an artifact creature, gets back an artifact, although the inventor is just stupid. I hate hexproof. This is the only hexproof card I have in these kind of restricted cubes. Seed of the Synod obviously is also good. It's an artifact land. It works with Affinity. It can be sacrificed to ATOG. Belligerent Guest is good. It definitely is an aggressive card, but we would want to have a bit more combat tricks to be sure to get in more than 1 hit on the opponent and generate more than just the 1 blood token. I think for now I'll take the Mer Enforcer and just have the Affinity Tron here with the 3 big payoffs to having a lot of artifacts in play. Stornheim Courser, kind of similar to the Sculptor, although it is a good creature on its own, this one is not an artifact, so I'm not really interested in it. The Artificer is a bit too defensive for my taste. Archaeologist cares about non-creature cards. We do have a lot of creatures. So this is not very easy. Vampire's Kiss, even though it does seem like it wouldn't go necessarily into an artifact deck, it is a 2-mana card that produces 2 artifacts, you know, which is great for, I don't know, the Enforcer, the Inventor. I'll drop this on turn 2, maybe turn 3 you can make something happen. You know, turn 3 you have a turn 1 artifact, turn 2 Vampire's Kiss, turn 3 Inventor. That might be good. I don't think there's just anything else we desperately need. The Forgotten Cave is not really what we're looking for. We're more interested in artifact lands and fixing. I think we'll just take the Vampire's Kiss for the moment. Maybe we move that over here to our black column, and we have a white column as well. Ichor Wellspring, great with ATOG. Although I think Galvanic Blast is just too powerful to not take at this point. I think after the blast I would go for the Wellspring. Restoration is not where we're at. Restoration is more of a card you would use to get back Mirror Shell Crab, or one of the big prototype creatures. For 4 mana you kind of want to get more back than just a 4/4. 4 mana for a 4/4 is not really something to write home about. So yeah, we'll just take the blast for the moment. I think we're doing pretty well with removal. Resculpt is not really removal, but we do have the arrows, we have the excavation explosion, and we have the galvanic blast at this point. I think we're doing pretty well. Cranioplating is probably one of the best cards for artifacts. I mean, I probably don't have to tell you that. It's just a stupid card. Not sure where that was printed out. A common. Stern Lesson, not really interested in that. I think it's just Warlord's Elite, I guess, has Improvise. No, you could see this as a 5 mana 4/4 with Improvise. Just tap 2 artifacts when you play it. It's really flexible. That's what I like about it. You know, you can play a ATOG turn 2 and then just turn 3, tap an artifact and the ATOG to just dump this out. But the plating is just so good, you know. Why even talk about everything else? Treasure Cruise, powerful. Not sure if we can really abuse it in this deck. Synthesizer, interesting card advantage. Our curve is kind of high. You know, playing this, well, it does help with Improvise and Affinity. So if we exile an expensive card, at least it costs 1 less mana. But it hurts so much to miss with it. Also, we would want to sacrifice it not for 3 mana, but by other means, like with our ATOC, and at the moment we don't have too much. Exiling it does work. Exiling it with Resculpt, making this into a 4/4. It does trigger on leaving the battlefield, not dying. So, you know, maybe we have two ways of getting it into the yard. We pick up a 3rd and 4th, and then we'd be ready to go. Either way, just playing this for 1. On turn 2, you don't get a land. You can play it. It doesn't matter. You play the 1 mana artifact, and you advance your board. Salivating Gremlins, awesome card for pressure, especially with these affinity cards when you can dump 2 artifacts on the same turn. Attacking for 6 power trample is just, it's the nuts. Sudden Breakthrough is great for the Belligerent Guest, kind of more of the combat focused artifact deck, but I think, you know, having both of these would be great. They go very well together, but I think we'll take the Gremlin for the moment. So we're already pretty set up with our big threats. What we're looking for now is maybe more removal. Some of these, you know, 1 or 2 mana artifacts that make 2 artifacts that help with the affinity side of things. Here, I'm really not interested in anything. I can just hate draft the Angler, put it over here. At this point, I don't really think we're gonna go into black. I think we're pretty set up with blue and red. So let's just take the Witching Well and be on our way. The Belligerent Guest, I don't think we're gonna end up playing it, but we'll see. Maybe we need the 5th 3-drop Death Spark, not really for our deck. I mean, it's one damage we could get back over and over again, but we can't really do that reliably in our deck. So not too interested. Ceremonial Knife makes artifacts when dealing any combat damage. Not sure if it's a little bit too slow with the equip 2. Would make our bombs into 5 power creatures, you know, that helps against Gurmic Anglers and other bigger threats. Fear of Death is kind of a safe removal spell, but if they have 5 toughness, they could still block our bigger threats, so I'm not sure I'm really into that. Argivian Restoration, get back Serrated Arrows, get back Renegade Freighter, not sure. I think I'll go for the Knife. And the Gold Hound, that's not really what we're looking for at the moment. Let's just leave that over here. Bannerhide Crew Shock, we don't need that either. Okay, what do we have here? Prototype, we're not in white. Ornithopter, okay. Metallic Rebuke, great in our deck. Wellspring, also interesting. Nibblerite Schematic would be probably my pick over the Wellspring because it makes kind of the same effect when it comes and goes. It does something. The Wellspring finds a basic land. The Schematic makes a 1/1 colorless artifact token. Glaze Fiend is great. A great card on turn 2, can provide a lot of pressure, you know, kind of a 2-power attacker that has possibility of, you know, attacking for 4 flying. But I think that the Metallic Rebuke is just such pristine interaction. You know, at this point we have the Synthesizer, Kite Sail, Star, Well, Ceremonial Knife. All of those can stay up to help improvise out the Rebuke. After that, I think I would go for either the Glaze Fiend or the Schematic. I think the Schematic is great for what we're trying to do. It's great with ATOG. It's great with the cranial plating, but you know, one of these two is going to wheel, and hopefully the Nimblerite Schematic will wheel because there are powerful cards in here. There's some cards for enchantments, even some artifact cards. Maybe this is innocuous enough to wheel. Who knows what the bots really do. Here we have Fixing. I'm interested in that. What else? Not too much. Kind of combat trick equipment here, although that's really better if we are the equipment theme. Sacrificing artifacts. It would be good if we didn't have to tap the Warehouse Thief to do that. But since we do, we kind of have to decide for, you know, attacking, blocking, or getting card advantage. I think we'll just go for the Karoo land here. It's great card advantage. Maybe we even play the Carnarium just, you know, as a red and colorless source. What do we have here? Great removal spell. 2 big creatures, not really for us. It's also in black, a lot of white. Harvest Pyre is kind of the only pick for us here. We could take Blazing Torch, you know. It's kind of a shock, a slow shock that can help with Affinity or can be sacrificed to something else. But I think Harvest Pyre is kind of a fine removal spell. It would be the first one we're currently cutting from our deck. We'll see what else comes up. So Bone Splitter, great equipment. Terrarion can get sacrificed. We're not really heavy into the sacrifice theme, but we could be if we take the mechanics. The mechanics not having stats really kind of makes me want to skip it. If it would be the Strong Bull that gets power and toughness and is kind of I think a 2/3, I would be more interested in that. Yeah, besides that, Tumble Magnet is kind of okay. Soft removal implement is not really. I think I'd rather take the Terrarion at that point. But I think the Bone Splitter is kind of great for our deck, you know, works with Affinity and it's just 1 mana to equip. It's really easy to, you know, play something, equip on the same turn. Wow, I wouldn't have thought to have gotten the 4th piece of Affinity bombs. I mean, if we take that, do we even need it? We already have 3 big guys. We have a Mechanist. Not sure if the Mechanist is still good in our deck. We have a lot of non-artifact spells. I think the Guest can go for the moment. Goldvein pick is good. It's pretty good. Equip for 1, it gives +1/+1 is, you know, that's already solid, but creating a treasure token when we connect with the opponent is great. I think we'll just take the Serpent. I mean, we can't have too many of those. And now we're really interested in developing our artifacts sooner than later. You know, the Kurtark is great. It can also tap lands, not only creatures. We will have a very easy time getting Metalcraft going, but I think with all these payoffs and the Mechanist wanting to find artifacts, the prototype is probably a safer pick. It can also be removal later in the game if we still have it in hand or top deck it. Let's just go for that. That might be a bit of a controversial pick because the Tapper is just the more powerful card in general. Oof, if we were black, I would be slam dunking the Blood Fountain here. Making 2 artifacts on turn 1 is crazy. Since we already have so many playables, I think I might just go for the land. Equipment matters. Artifact land that's green and white, neither of our colors. Big score is kind of too clunky. Maybe we take the Mistral Singer and see if we have enough non-creature spells. I really don't think so. The Nimblewright Schematics Wheel, that's great. We're gonna take that. Maybe the Quick Draw Dagger if we need more interaction post-board. Yeah, let's just take the dig side. Everything else is not really for us. Combustion or Tumble Magnet. I think since we have all these big non-evasive threats, the Magnet might actually be good. Same vein, the Goldvein pick. We can just finish up the draft here and start constructing our deck. All right, let's go into deck construction. I think we can get the dig side out of here for the moment and all these cards not in our colors. We're not gonna play black, we're not playing white or green. Then we'll keep these over here. I think the Death Spark can go. These 2 might be considerations. What do we have here? Mistral Singer is also kind of up in the open if we do want to play that. Kind of, let's just put some sacrifice stuff down here and some Affinity stuff up here. Cranioplating, Sculptor, Retriever is kind of a sacrifice thing. Relic Runner, okay. Moonsnare prototype is Ramp. Removal, I think this is kind of open if we're playing that. I mean, it is good with our big threats. It's not really good with the Freighter. I think contentions are the Kite Sail and the Dagger. I think the Bone Splitter is good enough to warrant an inclusion. The Knife is kind of up in there if we do want to play it similarly. So the Goldvein pick, Harvest Pyre. I mean, how much removal do we have? We have the Blast, we have Rebuke. I'm not gonna count the prototype, to be honest. We have Resculpt, which is not really removal, to be honest. We we have the explosion and the arrows. Do we really want to play the arrows is also a question. I mean, we can sacrifice it to the ATOC web, but we don't really have these white cards and black cards that get it back. So I think that can actually go. What do we have? We have 7, 8, 15, 20, 25 playables at the moment. So we're definitely not going to play these. We're pretty sure. Over here we have kind of the sacrifice thing. What do we have here? This is all our high-end fairy mechanist. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cards. It wouldn't hit. Plus all the lands besides the Great Furnace. That's not really too great. I think we might be able to get rid of that. What kind of card advantage do we have? We have the well, we have the synthesizer, the star is kind of a redraw. Besides that, not too much. We get something back with the retriever. Not sure about the resculpt either. Kind of, it can save something from removal. The enforcer gets removed. We exile it and get a 4/4 in return. Not sure if we would ever want to use it as removal on our opponent's creatures, as a 4/4 would trade very well with our threats. Maybe the Harvest Pyre too. Tumble Magnet is kind of removal. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 pieces of removal. We could play 16 lands. These don't really cost 4 mana, to be honest. This could be 3 mana cards. What do we have now? 13, 18, 22. That's kind of low, actually. 22. Do we want to go very low curve? Maybe get rid of the off-color Karoo land and just try to get some damage through with Tumble Magnet. If we go the evasion route, we do have Menace. This thing can be unblockable. I think I would like to have Kite Sail. We can also play this early if we don't have a creature. Just have an artifact out. Later on, we can still equip it. I think the dagger is not really for us. Knife or Goldvein Pick. Not sure. I think these can go. Harvest Pyre. Do we have to remove a lot of creatures? I really don't think so. I think we can just, go over the top, have trample, be big enough that we don't really have to remove something. We can always raise. Let's see, we have these 3 over here still. We have 9 and 6 is 15 and 8 is 23, 17 lands. That's quite a lot if we think about that these cards are kind of 3 mana, 2 mana cards. In certain cases, +1/+1, +1/+0 creates a blood token. I'm not really sure I'm interested in the blood token. I think I'm more interested in the treasure. Let's get that in here and then these 2 out of there. And there we have it. We have our Izzet Artifact Affinity deck. I guess I would call it an Affinity deck. We do play ATOC, but that's just for cleaning up. It's not like we play this on turn 2 and that's our whole game plan. Kind of great to fake out our opponent as well, because they usually like to hyper focus on ATOC and just remove it right away before getting any riskier. So that's great for just even removal to then make room for our big threats. And let's just move on to the next draft.